Thank you for joining CEEN Caribbean News. I'm Candice Ming. 15 Cuban migrants have been detained by the immigration authorities in the Cayman Islands. The Cubans were making their way towards the United States when their wooden boat landed at Rum Point in Grand Cayman on Wednesday afternoon. The boat's engine had failed, thwarting the journey. The group of 9 men and 6 women started out as 16, but when they entered Cayman waters Tuesday evening, one of the men disembarked off Cayman Brac. This latest detention of Cuban migrants brings the total number of Cuban migrants detained at the Immigration Detention Center in Fairbanks to 84. Since the announcement of the normalization of ties between Cuba and the USA, there have been fears that the U.S.'s wet foot, dry foot policy, which grants Cuban citizenship if they make it to land, will be discontinued. That fear has resulted in more persons braving the oceans to get to the United States. In news from Guyana, President David Granger says he's willing to hold a referendum to decide whether the death penalty should be abolished. Granger stated that, quote, "If the National Assembly were to consider it, and even if there was a deadlock, we can go to a referendum. Let the people say what they want to occur in this jurisdiction," end quote. President Granger maintains that if any changes are to be made, it must be consultation with the people and not influenced by external forces. This stance is being lauded by international human rights representatives who say the president's stance is encouraging. They say in countries where the death penalty becomes public discourse, more persons are in agreement that it should be scrapped from the books. There has been an unofficial moratorium on hangings in Guyana for 20 years. However, the law states that convicted murderers can be sentenced to death if they have killed a member of the security forces, judges or magistrates in the line of duty. Guyana is the only South American country with the death penalty still on its law books. In news from Trinidad and Tobago, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has returned after a 5-day official visit to Jamaica. In a press briefing after landing at the Piarco International Airport, Dr. Rowley gave an overview of his trip, calling it a success. He also answered the pressing question, will the opposition be invited on future trips? More from CNC3's Golden Lee Bruce.
I'm pleased to say that when I got there, the people who were particularly aggrieved and who were the mouthpieces for this matter and who were the influence makers, we were able to speak face to face with them and very clearly outline our position in the context of our commitments under the Chaguaramas Treaty. And they understood very clearly, and we left Jamaica with the understanding that this matter is now behind us.
He says the issue of free movement was discussed at length, as well as trade and immigration matters. But what impressed him the most about his Jamaica trip was a DNA lab at UWI Mona's campus.
And whereas in Trinidad and Tobago we've had tremendous delays in the court waiting for results and so on and so on, and I don't know until I see what we have here to compare it to what I've seen in Jamaica. I don't know that I can complete this enthusiasm that I have. But I do know that what I've seen in Jamaica is serving the Jamaican community very, very well, and it represents the best that we could do in the region. And if that kind of technology is available in Trinidad, it can contribute to a number of areas where we now aren't doing as good as we can.
The Prime Minister was also asked about the presence of MP Prakash Ramada on the trip, and he responded that there were times when it was necessary for Mr. Ramada to be there.
Mr. Ramada is a very experienced lawyer. He's a very experienced parliamentarian, and he's a member of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And I can tell you, at critical moments in our discussions in Jamaica, his input is very valuable as a member of the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago.
Dr. Rowley says the government is not ruling out the possibility of inviting opposition members on further trips. He says it's up to the opposition to accept those invitations.
Opposition leader Colonel Prasad Bisesa had expressed disappointment with opposition member of Parliament Prakash Ramadar's decision to accompany the Trinidad contingent to Jamaica without consulting with the entire opposition. An invitation had been extended to Mr. Ramadar and another opposition parliamentarian, Ramona Ramdial. However, Ramdial declined the offer following talks with Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. Jamaica's Health Minister, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says the island is amplifying support and resources in the public health system for expectant mothers in light of the Zika virus outbreak. However, he would not be drawn on the Zika virus abortion debate. Here's Peter Gay Coombs with the details.
The number of confirmed cases of the Zika virus in Jamaica now stands at 44. During an address in Parliament on Tuesday, Minister of Health Dr. Christopher Tufton revealed that from a total of 3,746 notifications of possible Zika virus infections, 2,524 of the cases are classified as suspected Zika fever, including 200 expectant mothers, 7 of them having been diagnosed with the virus, pointing out that researchers estimate that 10% of pregnant women could give birth to a child with Zika-related microcephaly. The Jamaican health minister says expectant mothers are being prioritized in the public health system, with medical professionals given supplementary training to handle Zika complications.
The difficulty is that even if we know that a pregnant woman has a positive result, we will not know until late in the pregnancy or after birth whether the child has microcephaly. There is presently no intervention to counter that possibility at this time, while we continue to provide supportive care throughout the pregnancy to ensure the best possible outcome.
And though abortion is illegal in Jamaica, Opposition Member of Parliament for Northwest St. Anne, Dr. Dayton Campbell, who is also a medical practitioner, is of the view that the government should go further.
I've never advocated for abortion as a means of poverty control or anything like that, but I do believe that in cases where you have illnesses, mental illness and other things that will be difficult for the families to deal with those births, that where do we draw the line? I mean, the thing with abortion is that it's not every unwanted pregnancy is due to carelessness.
We are, on this side, more than happy to engage the opposition in satisfying all the concerns. And frankly speaking, I even go further, where we can learn from your suggestions and take them on board in the interest of the public. We're certainly more than willing so to do.
Minister Tufton says that several measures are being implemented to provide the necessary support to expectant mothers and their families during the outbreak of the mosquito-borne disease, including counseling, mosquito nets, resourcing of intensive care units, additional ventilators for newborns, as well as signing on for participation in an international trial for the development of a Zika vaccine. However, he says personal responsibility is the safest guard against the disease.
We maintain and continue to advise that women and their partners, if at all possible, delay pregnancy for at least another year. Through working with PAHO, we have trained staff and established the capacity to do ELISA testing. The simplistic explanation for it, Mr. Speaker, is that this testing, which is a new test, will allow us to tell whether pregnant women ever had Zika virus or whether they are having the virus. This will eliminate the 3 to 5 day window, allowing us more flexibility to diagnose Zika infection. Mr. Speaker, we are discussing similarly with PAHO the possibility of widely introducing this test, as the cost to test 40,000 pregnant women at the current price of US $20 per test would be approximately $800,000 US.
The previous health minister, Dr. Fenton Ferguson's tenure will forever be marred by what many saw as his extremely poor stewardship of the chikungunya outbreak, which ravaged the island for much of 2014. But in defending his management of the Zika virus since taking office in March, the new health minister says there is no comparison. He also revealed that he has requested a detailed report on the chikungunya outbreak, which will be tabled in Parliament.
In that process, I have discovered that over 40 Jamaicans died from chikungunya, and another 30 odd indirectly, 40 or so directly, another 30 odd, so 70 odd Jamaicans. Directly, well, I have to go by what the technocrats tell me, and to date, I have not heard a death from Zika, and therefore I think it is fair to conclude, although there were separate viruses in terms of impact carried by the same vector, but we have done a lot better.
Peter Gay Coombs for CEEN Caribbean News.
Tobago has confirmed 155 cases of the Zika virus. 2 of these cases have been recorded in Tobago. These figures were released on Friday by the Health Ministry after receiving confirmation from the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA. Meanwhile, Health Minister Terence Deyalsingh has cleared up rumors surrounding his recent ill health. On July 13, he had been hospitalized at the Port of Spain General Hospital following 2 days of fatigue and fever. A raft of blood tests were taken and he was kept overnight, then released. On Friday, Minister Deyalsingh revealed that he had in fact contracted dengue. He says his blood platelet count was dangerously low at the time of admission and is still not where it should be. Doctors have ordered him to keep his schedule light and not work on weekends. He is the 23rd dengue victim in the Twin Island Republic this year. Still to come, Jamaican pastor Reverend Al Miller found guilty for assisting the then fugitive Christopher Dennis Cook.